Tree Commission meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. First order of business is we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, so you're welcome to join us. Thanks. Okay. So meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was January 25th. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Nothing? All right. I'll make a motion to approve last meeting's minutes. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right. Consent agenda. I know we had talked about a couple of addresses, but I don't see anything on the agenda. Turn on your mic, Matt.
Yeah, so the applicants are for Glen Mary, right? So, and the other, so Glen Mary, anyway, the other plan was we had approved it with reservations. In other words, they had to make some changes to, and they would take those changes to staff.
515 Oak Grove.
And so Trish found that this had come before us at the end of September. I didn't remember it,
Gotcha.
but it had been, we were okay with it as long as they did a couple maintenance items.
Gotcha. So approved with contingencies and they followed through.
Yeah, so all the boxes were checked on that.
Understood. Okay. So no need to approve the consent because there is nothing. Sounds good. So moving on to new grading permits. Do we have anyone from 626 Glen Mary with us this evening? Welcome. If you could come up to the podium, make sure you speak into the mic. You can bend it around if you need to. You can drop your plans on the desk if you have some. If you don't, we can figure it out. Perfect. Thank you. So just state who you are, your address, give us an overview of the project, and then we'll probably ask a few questions. Thank you.
Good.
Yep.
Perfect.
My name's Lauren Duffy, and this is my husband, Adam, and we are the applicants for 626 Glen Mary. And we are hoping to put in a pool, so that is why we are here tonight.
Great, thank you. So it looks like you're moving 130 cubic yards of dirt around, obviously for the pool. So the main things that we're concerned about would be tree protection and then how equipment is getting in and out of your property. So if you could just illustrate, there should be an orange pointer in the podium that you can use, and then just make sure you still speak into the mic and just point out ingress, egress, and then also the tree protection. Thank you.
Okay. There is actually only one tree by the pool. It's a rather large tree, so originally we wanted to take it down, but decided against that, so we pushed the pool up. So we have the tree protection right around there, as you can see. And I had asked the engineer when he gave us the plan about the construction entrance, and he felt we have a gravel drive there that the previous owners had there because he worked in the shed back here, and he felt that would be sufficient enough for the construction.
Got it. Understood. Okay. Yeah, it looks fairly straightforward, and there's no trees between the house and the pool.
Correct.
So I guess the most important thing is that being a large, what we call heritage tree, anything that's over 30-inch DBH or larger, making sure we do everything we can to ensure that tree survives. The tree protection, need to make sure it's as specified, which is 6-foot chain link fence, and then making sure that it is set at the drip line of the tree so that no roots are disturbed.
Seth, I'd add something to that.
Sure.
One thing that this could have been on the consent agenda except for a couple questions. And one was, what type of tree is it?
Yep.
My husband asked me that, and I actually don't know.
Because if it's a 42-inch ash, you may want to take it if it has disease. If it's a beautiful tree, what's the canopy like? Is it?
It's a big tree.
No, but is it full?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not a lot of thinning at the top or?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the thing about a 42-inch tree that's healthy like that is the tree protection, those roots are going all the way out into your yard. So if you're going to do any grading around that tree, and I think you are, I think the plan shows grading going on. so a layer of dirt. Be very careful about that. You can suffocate that tree.
Okay,
And you don't want any vehicles running over it. So I'd blow the tree protection further than
Okay.
you have it, just to make sure that you're giving the tree every shot you can. And that was my only questions.
Yeah, and especially with that big of a mass, it just takes one, if you have soil disturbed on one side of it, it takes one ice storm and a big wind to, take it over. So, yeah, we just want to protect it as much as we can. But as long as you guys are willing to do so, I don't think we have any issues per se. Anyone else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, it looks like there's a 24-inch tree, a maple tree by the shed there that's staying.
yes, right, yes.
So I would just say you probably want tree protection around that, because I would assume once they dig this pool out, they're probably going to go in between the 42-inch tree and that maple. And are you spreading it out in the back there? Is it all staying on site, or is it?
I would think some would go off-site, because,
Let's see, I don't see.
When I looked at the plans, I was under the impression that all the grading, all excavation was staying on site. That it was just going to be spread through the backyard.
Yeah, so you just want to protect that tree too.
That tree as well,
probably, 'cause
okay.
They're gonna probably dig it out, then use a loader to go back there, and the elevation drops from like 420 to 416. So there's room to spread it out back there, but just want to be careful nobody hits that tree if you want to save it.
okay, yeah, no, it's a pretty tree. Yeah, I'll talk to
And
the
there's a
engineer about that.
Really small Japanese maple, maybe?
Oh, I see what you're talking about. I thought you were
Front of
talking about
the
the Japanese maple, because I don't see them going over there.
No.
Yeah, so you're
The other
talking
one's
right
there.
here,
There's two
yeah.
trees there.
They're actually not very, yeah, but we'll definitely protect
Yeah.
those.
Just to confirm, the plans do say, well, not the plans, but our agenda says dirt to be taken off-site. Is that true? Do you know?
That is what the pool company did tell me, yes, but I
Okay.
Oh,
haven't,
okay, well then you're in good shape then.
okay.
They'll come in the gravel yard. or-
Yeah, because
Yeah.
our yard is very flat to begin with, so it might be, yeah, I think it would be hard for them to keep it on.
Typically, when they excavate, they'll excavate and just load it right into a dump truck and take
And then
it
put
away.
topsoil
They won't
back, yeah.
stockpile it and
Okay,
make
Yeah.
it sit. So.
They should be good then.
okay, great, thank you.
Great. Any other questions, comments? I'll make a motion to approve plans as is. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. All right.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
with your projects.
Thank you.
Okay. So a lighter agenda tonight, which is good. We can spend time talking about some good stuff. So next item on the agenda, tree removal without approval or clearing permits, none. Item 7, violation notices, none. Item 8, old business, so update on spring bare root planting. So I'll let Frank do his thing. We should all have a paper copy in front of us as well. Jenny, you may not. Would you like mine? Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So if everyone has a copy of the February update, okay? We're moving along. As you know from last time, we ordered the 80 trees. We've also added 80 tree diapers, which will save some maintenance time for the township. We're still looking for places in the Wayne Business District, and eventually we'll, probably use a Google Sheet and Google Forms to ask for residents to request trees in their right-of-way. So we've got 20 trees currently earmarked for the Wayne Business District and 40 trees earmarked for right-of-ways within the township. We've got 20 trees going to the parks. I think we're pretty much sure on having 15 of them going in Harford Park and 5 of them going over in Philippone Memorial Park. Who's going to do the planning? I've put out a memo to the tree tenders in Radnor, as well as people who volunteered last fall. I think we need about 15 people, and I'm starting to get people coming back and say, yeah, I'll secure the date. I've got about 8 people right now that have volunteered, so we're in pretty good shape there. Ricky and Steve have said the township will plant in Philippone Park, and also Public Works will be doing 15 of the right-of-way trees. I think I'm correct on that, correct, Ricky? 15?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So, and we've put some requests out to local tree companies to see if they would donate crews. And Seth, you had heard back from?
Yeah, I won't mention any names because we don't have any definitive yeses, but we definitely have some verbal yeses. So we'll likely be in a good spot. Both of those were requested to plant between 15 and 20 each. So that should help offset the rest of what we need, which is great.
Like I said, we need 15 volunteers. That's, down from what we had last time. Ginny's going to be looking to get some people to give us food for breakfast and lunch for the volunteers. And just a little lesson learned from last time. This time we're going to ask the volunteers not only to plant stake and tie the trees, but we also want them to mulch, put in the diaper bags, and install some deer protection around the trees at the same time. So that'll just and also clean up the clumps and clods of dirt that comes from digging the hole. And just one other thing, I mean, just for perspective and context, we're doing 80 trees this time. We are planning, Seth, about 150 trees in the fall. So that'll give us about 230 for this year.
Correct, yeah.
So Frank, can I ask a question on that? So does that mean if we're going to do mulching and deer protection, diapers and all that, and cleanup, so I presume then that Public Works is going to deliver all those materials as well as?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So Ricky, I'm one of the violators of not cleaning up. How do we clean up?
This isn't confession.
I mean, how am I cleaning up all those, big sod things? I mean,
We're
are you
gonna
giving me a trash bag or what?
we're going to have a course.
We can dump extraneous sod and dirt into the woods somewhere at Hartford,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
depending on the area that you're using, if it's at Hartford Park or whatever, I mean, you could put it right in the woods.
Okay.
That'd be
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
And could you guys spare a couple of wheelbarrows, or even just one?
Yeah, you tell us whatever you need. We have it in supply. We'll definitely
Yeah.
make sure it's donated for that day.
Yeah, maybe just one I think would be enough. We can have somebody run around and collect the mounds of stuff.
Sure.
And just one comment, I know that we're asking the volunteers to do more, but one of the efficiencies that we've created is this time we're going to do one park, and we're going to meet at Hartford, plant at Hartford, do breakfast there, do lunch there. So people won't have to drive around. We're all there, the entire morning. So that should give us a little bit extra time to do what we need to do a complete job, which is good. And
That's
then
all she wrote.
yeah, one last thing. Once we have, I think we're close to having a good formalized plan here. So what we do need to do is present this to the BOC just to get their approval. Shouldn't have an issue, of course, but we do need to make sure we formalize that. So I'll work with Ricky and Leah to get that on the agenda, one of the next BOCs, and we'll present it as necessary. And I guess one more specific is when we want to open up the resident sign-up form and have Molly post it. Frank, remind me when trees will be picked up from the Navy Yard?
They'll be picked up probably on Thursday, April 20th,
Okay.
and be available for right-of-way and everything else.
Okay.
Will be invoiced before then.
Yep.
I might suggest that we wait till we get the confirmation from PHS that we're going to get what we ordered.
So typically, when we've opened up registration in the past, we're full within a week. So I'm not entirely concerned around opening it up, in the next couple of weeks. Do you know when the order confirmation will be coming?
Probably within the next 4 weeks.
Okay. So let's say if we give ourselves a definitive date, I would say giving ourselves at least 3 weeks. So by March 24th, that's when we'll plan to open up registration.
That sounds good.
Sound like a plan?
Probably at the same time, we can open up the volunteer form
Mhm,
also.
Yep. So the plan is I'll put together the same, so radnortrees.com, and we'll have a form for sign up for registration. We'll have a form for sign up for volunteers. We will have the waivers, which I know we talked about seeing if we can optimize that somehow, but I think at the end of the day, having them at the volunteer location, just have them fill it out there is probably the most surefire way to do it.
Yeah. I think I'd like to use the PHS process, because that gives us an online way to sign it, and we can also still sign them at the site.
Okay.
Might have to check with our solicitor to make sure that their waiver form is
Mhm.
acceptable to Radnor.
Ricky or Leah, do you guys know if the township has like a business edition of DocuSign or something similar?
That's a good question.
We can ask.
I don't know.
Okay, no worries. Well, I'll shoot you guys an email and we'll see if we can tap into that possibly.
Frank, I have one question. Do you guys need anything tool-wise? And the reason I ask is we have a lot of, I was thinking pry bars, because sometimes I think in these situations you might, have rocks that you have to move out and the shovel doesn't do it. So we have lots of that stuff. We have lots of shovels, rakes, hard iron rakes. If you need any, I'm happy to do that again.
Yeah, we
Okay.
did, we got all of our tools from Do It Best last fall. Pickaxes, everything else. We did run into a few like root rock situation, but unless you have a mini excavator like James, I don't know that any
Yeah.
other tool would
Yeah, okay.
help
Well, just
out,
let me
but
know.
appreciate it. In the fall, we might need some additional tools just based on the amount of trees we're planting, but keep you posted. Thank you, Matt. Any other thoughts? Spring planting?
Oh, I do have one other thought. So if you guys are doing the deer fencing, you need hammers. I mean, you need sledges.
We do have
Ricky-
we have the post drivers.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
that
that's right, I remember you.
Ricky graciously lets us use. Could we use more of those, Ricky?
I'll check and see how many we have. I think we only have about 2, but
Yeah.
we'll give you whatever we have.
Yeah. I mean, we're more than happy as well to use some of our STC funds to maybe grab a couple more. I'd imagine they're probably like $100, $200 or something.
I don't think they're that expensive,
No?
but yeah, we can we
All
can
right.
get a price on it.
It's big hunks of steel. Inflation, you never know. Okay. So what I would suggest is I'll make a motion to approve the spring planting as discussed, and we'll present to the BOC. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye? All right, perfect. Spring planting is on its way. Thank you, Frank, for doing all the legwork and organizing, and thanks everyone for contributing with everything. Appreciate it. All right, tree maintenance pilot plan. So we met this morning at Hartford with John, Ricky, Steve Ledgerton, James, Frank. Missing anyone? Yes, John's son, John Jr. And we discussed the overgrown woodland area down by the stream. So John's going to put together a couple of options in regards to a plan. And at the next meeting, we'll likely have something that we can discuss, hoping to vote on at that point. And then, of course, beyond that, we would present the plan to BOC and then we would line things up. So the plan still is for Hartford and the Radnor Trail. So I think Hartford, we're fairly locked in the location of where we'd like to perform this maintenance. But the Radnor Trail, I would like to chat tonight regarding what our thoughts are on location. I had a thought of near Radnor Chester Road, just not too far from here, down by where the old it was either a pump house or electrical station, I forget what it was, but now it's like a architectural firm that has like a wooded area, and Radnor Preserve, the apartment complex, is right there. That doesn't abut residential as much as other places. One comment we got from, it was either John or Ricky, I forget, was if we're devining or removing any sort of visual barrier that some residents obviously have concern over, well, if you're cleaning things up, I'll be able to see them, they'll be able to see me more so on the trail. So obviously, that's a concern. So I think for the pilot, we pick an area that doesn't have that issue for at least this year. Maybe we tackle that for the following years, but I feel like that would be the smoothest path for success. But wanted to get everyone's thoughts on that.
My only pushback on that would be if there's some areas on the trail that are full of dead ash that haven't been handled yet, we might want to consider that, taking that danger away.
Yeah, I think so. We weren't planning on any tree removals as part of this, and if there are any hazardous ashes near the trail, that would be taken care of through the line item for what Ricky has and his team throughout the year. So as part of this, once we identify an area, if we do identify some trees that are a safety hazard near the trail, then we can let Ricky know and add that to the list. But this would strictly be devining. I think is going to be the majority of it. We did touch on some possible pruning, and that will be dependent upon the location that we pick, of course. And to James's comments from the prior meeting, landscaping companies can do devining, probably a little bit more inexpensively than if you were to have a tree company come out and do pruning plus devining. So we might split those projects out, if that makes sense.
My only thought would be, Zach, Seth, to try and find something that is highly visible. So maybe like the access points where most people come and go.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody has input on which part of the trail is most heavily walked, but I know everybody has to come and access in at the same point.
Yeah.
So if there's something right in and around there.
Yeah. It's definitely more towards the heart of Wayne, of course.
Yeah.
Most busy. More towards this area, it starts to drop off a bit. But
Seth, this area you're talking about where the parking area is for trail access off Conestoga Road?
no, it would be before that. It's if you get onto the trail right over here and go quarter mile up.
Right
around
behind the
there.
apartment building. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
But happy to chat about if we think of any other locations that would make sense. I don't know. Ricky, do you have any thoughts on parts of the trail that you can think of that need some help?
Yeah, it was going to be a different area that I was just thinking about. But yeah, that area between Brookside all the way up to Radnor Chester, both sides, there is a steep drop-off on both sides. It doesn't abut anybody's property. So I would think that would be a great location. If I could throw another location in there, I know we're always probably working at the Willows, but that area between that creek that runs in there, I know all the big, there's a lot of big heritage trees in there. I know Steve Narsini, when he first was director, he had us go through and we had to clear the vines around all the base of the trees. I'm not sure how far the distance was, I can't recall when we did it, but I know we have to leave some of the growth there for a buffer from the creek, but to divine, you know, what grows up the trees might be a good idea too, and because of all the access that the Willows gets, that would probably be a good idea to maybe, you know, if we can fit it in that budget, to maybe at least tackle around the trees, just divining that, just another option as a place to throw in.
Yeah, I know we did talk about the willow at the Willows needs some help, and we wanted to make sure that that thing got some attention as part of this. So my only thought for doing Hartford and the trail was just the amount of foot traffic. But do we want to shift to maybe instead doing Hartford and the Willows? Ricky does have a good point. I mean, you know, there's plenty of areas where there's, you know, events throughout the year, whether it's the pumpkin patch or anything else that goes on that, you know, people would see. So,
Ricky, does the Willis have any budget for that internally?
No, not that I know of. And the Willows Parks Preserve, that's not their job to maintain that. So it
Okay,
would all
all
be
right.
under the township, and we don't have a separate budget to do that.
And you're talking about trees that are mature trees that are vined.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
See, that's more real than, to me than, you know, just picking some overgrown,
yeah,
I mean, you're saving trees.
yeah. Any other thoughts on making that shift, doing the Willows instead of the Radnor Trail in Hartford?
I would,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jenny.
Ricky, I was going to ask you, if we did the Willows, is it multiple occasions that we would need, or is it something that we could get all that done in one, you know, effort, or?
I think that would all depend on the company that you hired, what their capabilities are. I don't want to
Oh,
speak for
okay.
them. I don't know who it'll be. I know there's another component that we still have to talk about when it comes to the amount of money. So I can't speak for what the company will be able to do and the amount of time they'll be able to do it.
Right,
But
okay.
in-house, how long it took us to do that, if I'm going to throw out a number, Parks Department has had about 10 guys in the department, and we probably had a crew of about 4 or 5. We're over there maybe a couple of weeks.
Oh, that long, okay,
Yeah.
with
So
10 guys.
and it was, you know, kind of extensive because we didn't do any chemicals or anything like that, but we did, you know, cut everything down to the ground, and because of that, we did have to repeat that process. So it wasn't just a one-time thing and walked away.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's helpful input, thanks.
What area did you guys do specifically?
Around the whole creek line. So you
Okay.
have the big field,
Yep.
basically from Darby Paoli, one side, then we had to go around the other side to where the pond is and right back down the other
Yep.
side. So everything that was in that area, we had to basically give about a 5-foot circle around the tree. Everything was cut down.
Yep, okay. James, I know you were.
I'm not gonna like this. The Hartford Park
Uh-huh.
plan, the more I think about it, the more it feels more like a project to me instead of a maintenance issue. So, I mean, if we go ahead and agree on something like that, I think we still need to do, like you mentioned, the willow tree at the park where it's right in the middle. Other trees that need divining, like Matt said, you know, heritage. I also think we should look at Wayne Business District. And we planted, that was done like 2 or 3 years ago, I think. And so all those new trees are coming up. Have you guys pruned them at all, or?
No, and that's a good point, because we used to, years ago when I first started, we would go through every winter and prune all the trees back for the winter. We haven't done that. I mean, of course, you don't have the tree capabilities to do that, but that was something that we did every year, and I think it made a difference
Yeah,
in
and
the
I mean,
size of those trees. So,
yeah, a newly planted tree, after a year or two, they should be
Yeah.
pruned, so you get your leaders, you know.
Did that stop for a reason, Ricky?
Just because we didn't have the budget, I mean, nor did we have a tree,
Sure,
you know,
right, okay.
division in the township. So once things were changed and cut back, we didn't have
Sure.
anyone to be able to do that.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
could, you could probably get a tree company. I would use a tree company for that.
Yeah.
Not much climbing or anything involved, but you get somebody like Shriner or Ward that does a nice job.
Mm-hmm.
They'll make sure those trees probably 1 day, 2 days at the most,
Right,
and it's, everybody sees it.
right.
You know, so it's maintenance that's highly visible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think should spend $3,000 or $5,000 on that alone.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think it'll be worth it, so.
Um,
Along with the bigger projects, I think that type of maintenance
mhm.
we should look at.
And, I mean, thinking about it, I know we were trying to be cost efficient in keeping these companies at, you know, 1 or 2 locations and not having them go all over the place. But at the end of the day, I don't think that really much matters. I mean, as long as we have a plan mapped out and, you know, they estimate it and it makes sense, I don't see why they couldn't, you know, hit 3 or 4 spots, you know, over the course of a couple of weeks or whatever it ends up being.
So,
Okay.
Could I make another suggestion? I can't remember how many trees, and maybe Frank might remember this. I'm not sure what group was that. The trail between Hartford Lane and Hartford Park, but all those trees, bare root trees that you put in that wooded area is filled with vines. So if you want to protect what you've just invested planting all them there, it might be good to also go back there and make sure those existing trees are devined, and also the new trees that you just planted a year ago are safe from vines growing on those. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, I agree. So it sounds like we maybe need to create a longer list than we were thinking and prioritize it. So I can take the lead on that. I'll make it a Google sheet and I can just share it out, and that way we can all kind of adjust and contribute as necessary. And then we can chat over email, and then next meeting we can kind of formalize and figure out what exactly that list looks like. In regards to the nuts and bolts of sourcing contractors and staying within the limits of the BOC approvals and things, I know last meeting we talked about digging into more so in regards to how, you know, this could be sliced and diced so that we didn't have to put this out to pen bid. Ricky or Leah, did you guys, you know I was going to push on the spot. didn't you?
We actually had a conversation today with our grant coordinator and just talking about the finances behind scenes also with Ms. Leah. So what I would ask if we could kind of table it, because
Sure.
We were told to speak to John Rice, because he would be able to direct us in regards to that 50,000 if it was able to be split up or if it had to be used in entirety. So I kind of want to get an answer from him
Sure.
on what we're allowed to do with that money, and how, if it has to be, you know, used all at once, or if it has to be, you know, broken up into increments less than 25 or even smaller than that. So he would know how we're able to use that money so that we don't go against any rules.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Sounds good. And you'll take the action item to
Yes.
follow up with him and let
Mhm.
us know. Sounds good. Thank you. Definitely want to play by the book here, but also get the work done. Any other thoughts? Great. So we have a couple of action items. We'll come back next month. Hopefully have some things to formalize and vote on, and we'll go from there. Moving on to new business, item 9, so the North Wayne Tree Trench Stormwater Project. Ricky, did you want to chat through this? Give us a little overview?
yeah, I am should have invited Steve here to comment on this one. I don't, what'd you say, Ms. Lee?
He wasn't available.
I don't want to misspeak on any of the portions surrounding it, so.
Tell you
I'm-
what I can do, Ian, are you able to bring it up on screen and I can just kind of read through the backgrounds, refresh everyone's memory, and then can leave it at that? I know we wanted to get this in front of, the public forum, just so that we could chat about it. Thank you, sorry. So while we're getting that up on screen, the background of this is North Wayne area of Radnor Township has experienced flooding issues for many decades. The issue stems from runoff from a 500-plus acre drainage area that North Wayne is the recipient of. The vast majority of homes built in this drainage area predate any stormwater management ordinance, and in general, the area is densely populated. The township had Meloria Design Group perform a study to determine what could be done to help alleviate the flooding. One of the recommendations from Meloria was the installation of incremental best management practices, or BMPs, in the North Wayne area to help alleviate flooding. A single intervention on its own will not alleviate flooding, but with many interventions over time, flooding in specific storms can be reduced. The North Wayne Tree Trench Project is one of 3 such incremental projects. The other 2 current projects in design being the Cowan and North Wayne Field parking lots stormwater management projects. We anticipate more projects in the future. So essentially, tree trenches being put in North Wayne for stormwater management practices, and this would be specific to Oak Lane and what's the crossroad there? 1 second, while my computer freezes. Yeah, so Beech Tree, looks like a fair swath on Beech Tree. Perfect, thank you, Ian. We have it up on screen. And I don't want to speak for Steve Norsini, but I would imagine there's some sort of public communication that's going to be happening. And Ricky, I don't know, do you know if there's a timeline for this project?
I was talking with Ms. Lee a second ago, and right now, currently, it is out for bid.
Okay,
So once that process is probably handled and someone's selected, I'm sorry, yeah.
It's closed, the bidding.
It's closed?
Yeah.
Okay, well, here we go.
As far
Thank-
as I know, I mean, it was closed about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, once it goes before the commissioners, then, we'll have someone selected and the work will be started from there, so.
So I had brought this up,
mm-hmm.
and I was the big problem with it. The reason why, it has trees involved, so I wanted to bring it to our attention. A lot of the trees being planted, I think there was about 20 of them that are going to be used for stormwater. They're going to all be probably ornamental or small canopy trees because there's overhead wires in a lot of these areas, or in a few of the areas. So we're looking at a price tag, which the bidding was at like, I think the lowest bid was 300,000 plus to plant 40 trees. And what they're doing is digging up sidewalks, curbing, and then installing pipe and gravel, then putting it all back and planting trees on top. So I wanted to bring it to everybody's attention because I think it's a grand waste of money. And I think I'll leave it at that, so everybody knows. But I think for 350,000, I think we could plant a lot of trees and do much better with stormwater.
And I'll say that this goes back years on Shade Tree because this has come before us before. I don't know how many of us were on the Shade Tree when it happened, but that commission at that time was not happy with this plan. It was like, prove the physics to us, that this is really going to work. And I don't remember that ever being done.
Right. And another thing, when this first started off, or at least when I was here on a commission, I think it was 2 public works directors before you, Ricky. And the project started off as Township was going to do it. So you guys were going to take little parts of it and then go from there. That was 3, 4, 5 years ago, I think. And it's become this. So, I mean, I think people should be aware of it. I just don't think for $350,000, and sorry to the winning contractor that won the bid, but just seems like not a good use of taxpayer money for stormwater.
So do we know when this is going to go in front of the BOC?
I do not. I can find that information and
Okay.
email it to you tomorrow.
Sure. So I would say, next steps for this would be, come to the BOC meeting of which this is presented, and, we can voice concerns at that point. And in the meantime, I guess Steve Norsini would be the guy to reach out to for any specific questions. I do want to, there's a table on page 3, just to recap the numbers. I know you mentioned 40, but I'll go over the specifics here. So 41 trench pits, all trees would be 2.5-inch caliper. Total of large and medium trees would be 25, and total of small canopy due to overhead utility would be 16. And then the list of species, there's Nyssa, ginkgo for the large, medium, and small species. There's some dogwoods, summer snow. It's not the complete list, but just to give you an idea of the mix.
I mean, Seth, it would also seem to me like this is, putting the cart before the horse. To me, I mean, I agree with James. It should have come to this shade tree before it even went out for bid, so that we could give comment on the way it's being handled and the price, and all the points James has just made. We can go to the BOC, but I would also like to make the point to the BOC that really something like this should come to the shade tree before it even goes out for bid. I mean, would you agree to that, James?
Yeah, I would agree, especially with picking the trees, but I think what John Hosbeck had said was these are trees that are approved by the state for right-of-way trees, I guess, but we're planting right-of-way trees all the time anyway.
Yeah,
And this, to be clear, there was a commissioner here when this was first presented that the township was going to do it. And so he did bring it forward in a smaller capacity. The only reason I saw it is because I get the pen bid advertisements.
Oh,
So I saw Radnor Township tree trenches and,
yeah, I mean,
But
it is
I
astronomical
agree, it should have
amount
been,
of money considering how many right-of-way trees we've been planting for a fraction of that price.
exactly. I mean, the big thing they're gonna say is they're digging these trenches, they're gonna put pipes in, water's gonna drain into it. I went through there, looked at the area. Gravity, water's gonna flow to that area anyway, and depending on flooding order or not, it's gonna fill up, no matter what. That's life. I emailed my commissioner, Mr. Jim, over there. And, I said, why don't we wait till we see what the flooding by the firehouse looks like in 2 years before we're looking at a project like this. I mean,
Yeah,
$350,000 is a lot of money,
it sure is.
so I just thought as a advisement committee, something good that we could,
Seth, what I could do is, just because I was on the shade tree when this was before us before, and I think James was as well, I could look back and see where we left it.
Yeah,
Just do a little reporting on where, like, this project went away from us
Right.
and the township for at least 2 years. I mean, right, James? I mean, we haven't heard about this for
We haven't, yeah.
No. So where was it last, where did we leave it? Or what did we have to say about it? Even though it was a different makeup of a commission.
Yeah. I think they're gonna say it's not really a tree
It is a stormwater
program,
management
it's a
project.
stormwater
right.
project, so that's why it hasn't come to us yet, and it probably would have been before us at some point. That's what's gonna be said, but
Mhm.
it's good to get a start on it. I mean, I'd rather plant $350,000 worth of trees. I think it'll do a lot better in 20 years than a clogged pipe. So,
Okay. So we'll dig into this a little bit more. But obviously, this was just more for review and not a vote per se. So we'll do what we can to voice our concern and go from there. But I do believe, Matt, that likely there was some sort of input at some point in time. It's just the issue being the lapse of time seemingly is an issue. So, all right. Well, we will move forward as we can. So moving on, before I do, any other new business that anyone has? No? Okay. Annual goals, so we reviewed those last meeting. So no need to touch on that again, but wheels are in motion for everything, which is great. Item 11, hazardous trees, none. Item 12, trees removed by Radnor Township, none. Any public participation?
Good evening. Sarah Pilling, Garrett Avenue, 41 years. I was going to come to your last meeting, but I went to see Women Talking at the movies, which is a fascinating film. But so here I am. I have two issues. The first is to give Ricky and his team kudos for what they've done at Emlyn Tunnel. It's trees impinging on the walking trail. And some of the tree roots, and I can't believe how big some of those tree roots that your guys cut with a chainsaw, but there were several that were that big. They had intruded in across the path, and there was about a 2-inch raising, which increases liability. There are a lot of elderly people who walk there every day, runners, nicer weather, kids riding bikes, etc. But it's an ongoing problem. I walk there every morning, and although they did a big patch, there are still 15 intrusions all the way across the path of tree roots that actually are on the fence or just over the fence on Radnor House property. Part of the issue, this is the eastern part of the walking trail, the eastern part of the park. Part of the problem is there's soil there that absolutely just constantly rushes down. With the rain recently, Ricky, the walking path is now about this wide because all the rest of it is covered with thick mud. It is scheduled in 2025 to be replaced, but I've lived here for 41 years, and I remember the trail going in 1997, and I don't want to say how many times it's been deferred on capital project. But it's going to have to be a really big project in my mind because these tree roots are just going to continue to move, and this bank is going to continue to erode, which covers the path. So I wanted to alert you to it. I know it's parks, but I think it's also shade tree. I had, when Billy Hagan was head of whatever you are, Public Works, we talked about timbers crossing that bank and daylilies behind it. And actually, when they redid Emlyn Tunnel, the parking lot, et cetera, they put in 5 lovely shrubs, what I call the tongue, which is how you're supposed to exit. And they were gone in 4 days. So I personally separated daylilies, catch them from friends, and planted that tongue with daylilies. So it's been a number of years, I would guess 15 years. And it's almost too crowded with foliage now, so I don't think planting, if you could create some layering so the soil doesn't wash down, you could mostly use those daylilies, pick them out, and also you could ask people, because we all have orange daylilies. So I wanted to, it is shade tree, but it's not shade tree, but it is the park. And also, Ricky's team did prune some of the newer trees this winter, particularly the Cladastris lutea, the yellowwood, which likes to go this way, and it was going, how many 6-year-olds are going to run into that tree? But they've done a nice job of pruning them and going up. The other issue is perhaps a little controversial. I don't mean to make trouble, but I spend a lot of time driving out Lancaster Pike past the mound on the Blue Route to Giant. And I'd like to know what the status of it is. There's lots of long grass, and I saw one patch of black-eyed Susans last summer. A, it looks like hell. People are still talking about it. But B, whoever paid the money for the griffin and the cairn spent a lot of money, and they did a beautiful job. And I know the township has repaired the cairn once, but the weed trees are so thick now that you cannot see the cairn. I believe when they did all this dirty deed, they cut the wrong mound's worth of foliage. And by the way, Tom Schrodenbach's with John Collins did the plan for all the Blue Route, and those were all oak trees on the mound. So I'm just wondering, people say to me, what's going on there? And I go, I don't know. So I'm just asking, not expecting an answer, but just bringing it up into your consciousness again. Thank you. And I look forward to being a volunteer, as long as you don't make me lean over. Can't lean over anymore, and if I get down on the ground, I can't get back up.
We'll have you supervise.
I can
Thank you, Sarah. Just one comment on the Blue Route Mound. The last where that was left was Steve Morsini, and I know a bunch of other folks did their best to work with PennDOT and the state to try and get some replantings in there, but they just don't allow it, and that's where the Schedule 4, I think it is, seed went in there, wildflower seed, but I know Jonathan Alderson put together some plans, and then also Weeds Inc. Did the seeding itself. So I don't know, Ricky, you have your mic on. Did you have any comments?
No, you covered everything. Wildflower was planted. It didn't really take that well. Ultimately, it is state property, so they can dictate whether they want us to go and do anything.
What it's going to look like.
Unless the state, if the state gives us, any type of permission to do something differently, I'm sure we would be glad to. But it is their property to kind of stay away from, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that could be done is, if there's enough voice to the state to do something with it, but of course that would have to be led by.
It's funny, the state representative is someone I think we've been introduced to.
I have talked to Lisa about it after she was elected, and so I'm going to mention it again, because I think we, the people, should have a choice in what happens.
Well, I think actually, realistically, it should be put to bed, and it's something that goes out that says, this is what it's going to look like.
We should plant trees there.
Well, of course, but if that's not going to happen, just put the issue to bed. So it's like, this is it, guys. This is what it looks like. And then that'll stop people from, they may bitch a bit, but it'll just die a natural death.
Yeah, my question would be, is there anything active going on there in terms of poisoning? Because that was part of the PennDOT mandate to Radnor, was that we had to, if trees that were viable trees came back, we had to take them out. We had to cut them and paint them.
Right.
And is that going on? Because I I haven't seen any trucks up there. I haven't noticed that.
And I haven't seen anything
So-
sprouting up there either.
Well,
Matt.
then, well, maybe they are poisoning. I don't know, but that would be, there's no doubt that of all the egregious things that have happened to trees in Radnor, this is the worst, by far. So I think your point's well taken, Sarah, that maybe somebody should get to the bottom of what's going on, what's the future here, so.
I do know there's I'm not using the right wording, but there's a mutual agreement of nothing ever, ever, ever being disclosed. So let's just put it to bed then. This is what it's going to look like, a grassy mound. It's not unattractive. It's that people were expecting wonderful fields of wildflowers, which takes a lot of work. You know that, Matt.
Well, you do too, Sarah. You know that you have to keep after that.
That's right.
So,
Thanks, guys. Didn't mean to bring it up and get nasty. It's just,
Well, maybe, I mean, I think the community agrees that, you know, that area could be beautified. So obviously that's a big initiative that costs money. So, you know, maybe that's a point of discussion for some point in the future.
I mean, Seth, to Sarah's point, would it make sense for us to put something on our website page to at least answer the question, so everybody knows this is not Radnor Township property, this is, you know, the DOT's, and we've been advised that
Yeah,
we are not able to do anything or
Yeah,
under
and
their direction.
we had discussed a plan with the township a while ago in regards to that, but, you know, maybe we can chat with them again and figure that out. But we do have, you know, Jonathan Alderson did draw up some very nice plans with some options. So that part of the work is done. It's just the execution thereof. But because we can't plant trees there, it's a little outside of our purview. But I think collectively as residents, you know, we're definitely all on the same page. All right, anything else before we close? Meeting adjourned. Thank you all.